Welcome to Voices Unseen Quietly, real where real lives are remembered. Not loudly, but truthfully. And this is episode 7 of the Quietly Real series. I didn't go looking for history when I found him, and that may be the part that still surprises me the most. I was only trying to clear space, sorting through old boxes my family had carried from home to home, each one heavier with time than with things. The cardboard was soft at the edges, the tape yellowed, and everything smelled faintly like dust and paper that had been touched too often and understood too little. Inside were photographs without dates, letters without envelopes, and names written in cursive that no one in my generation could fully read anymore. At the bottom of one box, under receipts and church programs, I found a folded newspaper wrapped in thin plastic. The print was faded, but the headline still held its shape, and the name in it stopped me from breathing for a moment. It was my last name, not the shortened version we used now, not the one softened by time, but the original, spelled fully, firmly, without apology. And beneath it was a face I had never seen, but somehow recognized. He was standing in a crowd, shoulders squared, eyes calm, surrounded by people whose faces were blurred by movement and history. The article called him a local organizer, a teacher, a man who refused to step aside when told to wait. I sat on the floor longer than I meant to, reading every line as if it might disappear if I blinked too hard. The words described marches, petitions, arrests, quiet meetings in basements and kitchens, the kind of work that never makes monuments but moves the ground beneath them. No one in my family had ever spoken his name out loud. That absence settled in my chest slowly, like a realization arriving late but fully formed. I had grown up believing we came from people who survived, not people who led, and the difference between those two truths suddenly felt enormous. I called my mother that night and asked her if she remembered him, and there was a pause that told me the answer before she spoke. She said his name softly, like it still carried weight, like the walls might be listening even now. She told me stories she had been told once and then never again, about how he taught children to read when schools wouldn't take them, about how he organized rides to polling places, about how his house was watched and his phone was tapped. She said her father had stopped speaking about him after one arrest went wrong and fear moved in permanently. Over time, silence became protection, and protection became tradition, and eventually, tradition became forgetting. The next week, I went to the library and asked for archives, and the librarian didn't look surprised when I told her the name. She only nodded and led me to a back room where history waited patiently on metal shelves. I read about him there, line by line, finding pieces of myself in sentences written decades before I was born. His handwriting appeared in letters, his words appeared in speeches, his choices appeared in the shape of a world I had inherited without knowing the cost. One article described how he refused to leave a lunch counter, how he sat still while being shouted at, how his calm, unsettled people more than anger ever could. I closed my eyes when I read that, because suddenly my own life made more sense. The way I spoke carefully, the way I measured tone, the way I learned early that stillness could be power. None of it had started with me. I had been carrying something forward without knowing its name. I visited the street where he once lived, and the house was gone, replaced by a building that didn't remember what stood there before. I stood anyway, feeling foolish and full at the same time, as if the ground itself still knew. There was a moment when I felt grief for all the years I had lived without this knowledge. But the grief softened quickly into something steadier, something like belonging. I realized then that history doesn't vanish when it's hidden. It waits. It waits in habits, in silences, in the way we carry ourselves through rooms that were never designed for us. I told my siblings, then my cousins, and slowly the name began to travel again. It sounded stronger each time someone said it, like a muscle waking up after a long sleep. We gathered one evening, sitting around a table that had heard only ordinary conversations before, and spoke about him like he was still present. The room felt different after that, like it had made space for something that had been missing without complaint. I began to understand that pride isn't always inherited. Sometimes it's reclaimed. Sometimes you have to dig for it, brush it off, and decide to carry it forward with intention. I no longer felt like I was walking alone when I entered difficult spaces. There was a quiet sense of being accompanied, of stepping into rooms with more than just my own name behind me. His story didn't change the world overnight, and it didn't erase what came after, but it changed how I understood myself, and that was enough to change everything. I stopped apologizing for my presence in places my ancestors had fought to enter. I stopped shrinking to make others comfortable, because comfort had never been the goal of the people who came before me. Now, when I open those boxes, they no longer feel heavy. They feel like responsibility, and also like gift. If you're listening to this and feel a pull towards something unnamed in your own past, it may be because history is waiting for you too. Not all stories are meant to be loud, but all of them deserve to be remembered. This was Voices Unseen Quietly Real, Episode 7, and there are more true stories coming soon. So, if you'd like to hear more like this in the future, you're welcome to subscribe and return whenever you need a quiet place to listen.